Magda. Welcome to Big Home Reboot. I'm so happy to see you. And before we go, can you say a few words about yourself? Give our audience a small introduction.
Thank you, Aga. Very nice to be here and talk with you. It's a big privilege that you have invited me to this talk. I could introduce myself from many different ways, but I guess for this talk, it's all about the fact that I have been living in a couple of countries, and one of them was Japan, and I think this will be our topic for today. So I worked there in I don't know if we're introducing the brand, but one retail brand. And I've been there for 10 years. No, I was living there for 10 years, and it was always fantastic. So that's super shortly about me. And I'm super passionate about home furnishing and making life at home better. And I think this is the topic that connects us as well a lot.
Yes. And let's say also that we met a couple of years ago. It was funny because we talked on the phone when I was in Poland then, and you were in Japan. And we immediately had this, like the vibe and connection because we were just extremely curious about living in different countries and making life better and actually talking about it. And I think it was one of the most extraordinary discussions on the phone I had. And then after all, we met in Tokyo in person, and now we share the same interest, and we talk a lot and inspire each other. We travel each other sometimes as well, and show each other different things, and this is fantastic. And since you were living in Japan, I thought it would be great opportunity to talk to you, and thank you for saying yes to this conversation, because I don't know anybody more experienced as well in the minimalistic life, and also this kind of Japanese approach to living, and being so focused on small things as well, and being focused on a better living. So you said you almost a decade you live in Japan. So in your opinion, also you were moving from country to country, and you are living many more countries than Japan. So probably also your minimalistic interest is also connected with the way you just pack and go, and you're also a traveler. So can you tell us what is this important now after so many years of experience in Japan? If you could say what was important for you, in this process, to creating better living, more minimalistic, and how you did it in a few steps.
Yeah, it's a very good question because by the nature, I love collecting stuff. I mean, this is happening for me so easy. So I have to be very careful not to do that. So when I have decided to leave Poland like 15 years ago-ish, I have realized how much stuff did I have. Like it was enormous. So luckily enough, many friends were very happy to receive a lot of gifts. And then I reduced everything what I had into one suitcase and moved to Japan. I mean, first it was some other countries, but I think it was Japan that was the move with one suitcase, that time from Ireland. And then I have realized how little we need for living because this one suitcase was perfectly fine. Of course, we that time we moved to the apartment that had a bed and bed sheet and that kind of stuff. And then I have realized this brought me so much freedom. So this was kind of the first time I had a very good experience of living this kind of nomad minimalistic life. But then, of course, collecting stuff started again. So I have learned a lot from Japan because in Japan, in the past, the way how people lived was very much based on this simplicity. I think in the Western eyes, it's still that way of living in Japan, which is not necessarily the case often. But in the past, especially in the Meiji era, which is very kind of people always like to come back. This was the time when you basically had like tatami mat on the floor, which is type of flooring in Japan made like from the straw, sliding doors, and the stuff that you were having was just kept in the built-in storage. but it was very simple stuff. So basically, room was empty with almost no furniture. So we were living like that in Japan as well. Of course, adding some furniture because I mean, like completely minimalistic would not work for me. But then I have realized how amazing it is when you actually have space in the middle of the room to do whatever. When you have space on the walls and you just don't like put tens thousands of pictures and paint different colors. This gives so much space for your mind to relax. So this is something that I will always, I think, keep from Japan, not to clutter your home.
Last time we talked, you also mentioned, and there was kind of linking to what you said, simplistic life, that Japanese people, they love nice things, you know, aesthetically nice, well
Yes.
designed, you know, that you can really cherish the good aesthetics, design, the form, right? Really
Yes.
ambassador of a very nice form. Can you also say a little bit about, I'm extremely interested also, what does that mean, you know, to have this form at home? What does that mean? You know, what
Yeah.
kind of habits
Yeah.
also are built around that?
There's this famous word in Japan, which I think is more famous outside than in Japan, because when I talk to people in Japan, everyone was like, there is this word wabi-sabi, which means imperfect perfection, you could say that way. So in Japan, when you have the objects or some beautiful items, like it's not about making them like super square. They always have some imperfection, but it's done in a perfect way. And one example of that is like in Japan, when you have some ceramic item and it breaks, they're using the golden glue to connect it, and then the object becomes even more beautiful. So there are a lot of examples of that. That's like having, for example, completely empty white wall and then only small picture on that wall, but it's placed in such a perfect location that brings total harmony to the room. So this was always amazing for me to see in many aspects. How people can like place one, like the same ikebana, the flower arrangement from Japan. It's not like Western bouquet when you have like a bunch of flowers. Sometimes it's just like one or two pieces of flower, but the way how they are placed, of course, like those experts, they put hours to make it so beautiful. But then you sometimes wonder like how it was done, that like, you know, this flower here and this flower here, and then it's like just perfect harmony. I'm getting goosebumps when I talk about that.
Magda, what also you know happens, or what is definition of Chinese harmony, like you said? So you said one thing is making imperfect things perfect in somehow. You know, keeping this very well balanced. And I had goosebumps when you said also small picture in this perfect location on the wall. Yeah, this is like a sweet spot, you know, so
Yeah.
in between, right? But what also can you mention about that? It is important in Japanese living. You know, this perfect harmony of living in the spaces.
I think, I mean, again, based on the past, because these days there's this, I think there's a bit of challenge for people to combine Western lifestyle with Japanese lifestyle. It's getting, of course, more common, but it's still a challenge. But in the past, it was very important to have the space, you know, like it was not about not having the items, but really keep like, for example, center of the room, or as I mentioned before, the wall like empty and free from the clutter. And so I think this is all connected to this, like not really cluttering. But then another aspect is the nature, and I think we talked a bit with the ikebana, but it's not so much necessary having a lot of nature at home. A part of maybe one piece of flower, not so much more. But then the view from the old homes and houses, which are really beautiful, it was always to the nature. And maybe famous Japanese gardens, we know. But sometimes it was enough just to, you know, have like just something green outside of the windows. So this contact to the nature, and the nature doesn't always mean only green plants. Sometimes it could be stones or sand or water. This contact to the nature is as well very important for living.
Oh my God, yeah. It's connected to feng shui as well, all the 5 elements coming together.
This
Yes.
is amazing. When you travel, because also you are moving from country to country, what kind of
Habits you have, or how you arrange your space, your direct space, so that you always feel
that the space is recharging you, nourishing you, that this is the space that you feel comfortable, and you can even have
I'm like, I don't know how to maybe put in the right words, but you feel you are connected, and then you can really do more, because I believe that the space also influence you. And how do you do that, living in many countries like that? What is important for you, for your family?
I mean, when we have moved to now we live in Vienna, and when we rented our current apartment, it was absolutely empty, and our items that were coming from Japan were like 2 months delay. So we had to create the home without having our stuff. First thing what I bought was flowers. So we basically had like empty room, vase and flowers. So I think that this kind of like flowers or plants that always brings me like a lot of comfort. And then other thing is books. So I don't have like you have like tons of books I can see behind you. I have a lot of those albums, the books that have beautiful pictures. So this is as well like, I mean, the book that I bought here was in German because there were like that time not many shops open yet. So I just bought, like, it doesn't matter, it was in German. It was more that it had some really nice pictures and I could sit, drink coffee and browse it through. So I would say those two. Of course, art, but this is I do often myself just to relax. But I think that the first one was the flowers or plants. This always gives me the sense of home. How is it for you? Just from curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. For me, I lived in Shanghai for 4 months without anything except for a bed, and I didn't have in a sofa, so I didn't have anything. And you could live minimalistic life, but then I realized I'm not a minimalistic person, because I also believe that what you are surrounded with impacts you and can create this energy that you want to do something, or you can recharge, or you have kind of spa feeling, or you reset, relax. And the more I went into this Chinese philosophy of feng shui, I also realized that those things that you choose will reflect who you are, and also gives you some kind of energy. So you have to be very smart. So I would say this balance between clutter, whether it's still cluttered or not, and or these are the things that you really cherish and you feel good. And I think this was the moment of my creation. Like you said, I was just free, and then when the stuff came from Poland, I also realized that this will be the moment that I can recreate once again and give it those things the right space, but not too much. So I gave away a lot of things as well. I have also maybe 2 questions I'm curious to ask you. And the last one will be the question which is fundamental for this channel, about home. But before we go into that, we all know, because we work for the same company, and we know, and we are super interested in home furnishing, and we know that in time of pandemic, people change a little bit of habits. And also we know that there is a great report by IKEA that shows us that people also think a different way of a house. I'm not sure if they really changed, but for sure they had big reflections. And can you also share your opinion about it? I'm also curious what you think, whether you also had some kind of contact experience like this. I know in Japan was a little bit different about pandemic than in Europe, but also you are now living in Vienna, so probably also have kind of contradicting opinions on that as well. So what would you say that for people is now really important when we talk about home, after this pandemic, or in the middle, because we are still right in this kind of process, is the most important and crucial thing?
I think pandemic made many people realize how much well-being and health is important. I think this happened in every country. How much people started to consider, okay, what do I eat? How do I exercise? What I'm surrounded with? But as well, this kind of emotional stress. How much I can stay in balance, because there was a lot of pressure. I mean, still happening, a lot of pressure from the situation, unknown, but as well in terms of work, a lot of insecurities. So this kind of how to stay in balance, like inside out. This is, I think, one big aspect. And another, I think, human connections, because especially for people living single or in a very, with no chance to meet others, I think this became super important. Actually, this was one of my reasons why I decided to leave beautiful Japan and move back to Europe to stay closer to my family and some of the long-term friends. So this I think was as well a second one. And I would say the third one, which is actually connecting as well a bit to this well-being and health, is like how to get closer to the nature. A lot of people started to kind of move out of the big cities and finding some places where they can actually enjoy the nature even in the lockdown moments. So the apartments with balconies in Vienna were impossible to rent when I came here. So any kind of possibility to be outside, be in the nature and close to that, I think this was as well. I would say those three I see as the biggest changes in people's life. And I think a lot of reflections, a lot of people started to a bit change the priorities. Is it so important for me to work like crazy if I might die tomorrow? So I think a lot of people really started to change their jobs or change what they do or places where they live. I think this was as well a big movement.
Yes. And then in the end, we have different reflections, like you said, changing the way of living. And then also this direct space, how we live also changes with us. And this is what gives me goosebumps, because, we never talk about it that much. But this is so important, so damn important. If you want to make sure you can change your life, you can change your space as well. And then you change the way you live, and then you change the space. And this is, both ways working, right? Magda, last question, which I find the most emotional one.
What is home for you? What's the definition of home?
It's a very good question. I think for me, and I wonder what I told you last time when you have asked me before. I think I'm probably changing every time. For me, of course, one very basic aspect, which probably many people can say, is this kind of feeling of belonging. Like if you have the space that surrounding that neighbors that you meet around. That of course, like when you move to some new place, until you actually feel it that way, of course it's hard to say this is your home. But when you can already, the moment you open the door, feel okay, now I'm in my place, then you can say this is your home. For me, this is as well the space of a lot of freedom, like the things that you do at home, maybe not necessarily you want to show your neighbors, even if I have like no curtains in my windows. I mean, it's a lot of small things as well. The smell, the sunlight coming through the windows. It's this kind of balance of things that you can create for yourself and by yourself. So it's a very individual topic as well. I think we talked as well a lot about those like generic homes that you create a space because somebody else showed you, okay, this should be done like that or like that. I think it's important that the space is created for your own needs, that you can kind of freely flow through your home, like energy can fly through it. So it's your own space. The things that you put on the shelf or put on the floor, whatever, it's in the way you want to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Magda, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I promise that there will be short movies on this platform, but we are also, let's be honest, we talk about it many hours, and this is kind of essential.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe next time we'll also have to tackle an additional point, living in Vienna.
Thank you so much, Aga. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think it's always great I'm always having so many good reflections, and I'm charged with great energy after our chat. So I hope we can find some new topics. Vienna is as well very interesting to talk about.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you so much.